Hi, welcome to the Notebook. Should we just enjoy this? Flat out. Beautiful stuff. Right, so we've come in from outside. Actually, I feel a bit sunburnt. Nice day out there to do Development Corner. Welcome to the Media Centre once again. Thank you very much to Sutton Images for all their photos, their technical photos. Let's just get them up here and we can start at the front of the car. Shall we take a voyage from the front of the car to the back? And if you're talking about things at the front of the car, then you really have to start with the Red Bull, because they've come up with something that nobody else has, and that's this hole in the nose. And when I say it's the nose, it's not actually strictly speaking the nose. This just takes the form of a little vent in front of the nose. The nose itself, which has to pass the crash test and has to satisfy the rule on how big the holes can be in the front of a nose, actually starts a little bit back there. So what this does is a couple of things. First of all, it speeds up air around this rectangular bit of the front wing. We'll have a look at it in a top shot in a second, which is the FIA mandated sort of central section. You're not allowed to put any winglets in that area. That's why there's this sort of very sudden demarcation from this box section to what the teams then are allowed to do on the outside board of the wing. But by speeding up the air just above that FIA section, it actually makes that wing, that part of the front wing, work harder. And the engineers, you would have heard Adrian Newey on the Notebook on day one refer to the Y250 area or vortex of the cars. What they're talking about is this area sort of south of this front wing. That's what, if you hear them refer to the Y250, only engineers refer to the Y250, so don't worry about it, okay? It's just, if you hear about it, that's what they're referring to. So that's the first thing that it does. It makes that central section of the front wing work harder, give more downforce. And also, it sort of tidies up some of the air that's disturbed when it hits some of these front surfaces. So it works in conjunction. Simon, if you have a look at this little duct here, with this one on the side of the nose, and these ones further on by the hooves of the bull, if you like. We've blown it up slightly, got a slightly quick, larger photo here of this duct on the side. Do you see that? Just the tiny thing is, because what happens, air hits these surfaces and there's a boundary layer which is a little bit inefficient, and it starts to sort of get disturbed a little bit around these surfaces. And if you can just take that disturbed air, bring it in through a duct into the nose, and then channel it and get rid of it further up the nose or anywhere else in the car, you're doing yourself a big favor, because if you allow those little eddies, those little currents of air to magnify, then they can hit some very sensitive places in barge boards further down the car where you really don't want them to be. So that's why they're just cleaning them up while they can in the nose tip of the car before they actually do any more damage further down. So actually what's interesting, as much as the hole in the nose on the Red Bull, is the aggressive elements they've taken and the change in the front wing flap angle. Before it was sort of down a bit, and now there's this huge hole, you see this, as the flap comes up. And that's all creating flow structures. Now you'll hear lots of engineers and me talk about flow structures. So what is a flow structure? Essentially, a flow structure is something that stands to reason. You're setting up the air to do something. So the airflow, if it can hit a structure like a barge board, if you imagine the air comes in to the side like this, hits a barge board, you can deflect it, create a flow structure so that it then hits precisely an area you want it to go to, whether that's a wing or underneath the floor to work the diffuser or into a brake duct or whatever. You are creating a flow structure for the air to do what you tell it to do. So that's what all of these bits do. In the wind tunnel, computational fluid dynamics, they're setting up flow structures to tell that air what you want it to do, the job you want it to do further down the car. McLaren are doing the same kind of thing. So they've got they want to take some of the air around the front of their nose and actually tell it what to do, feed it towards the inside underneath the nose cone, and vent it very safely around so that it doesn't do any damage to the barge boards further down. The orange looks pretty good actually on that shot, doesn't it? The Sauber, similar kind of thing, and a bit more simplistic. They've also gone with a thumb nose They're one of a group of Red Bull, of McLaren and Sauber and Haas as well, who've gone with this thumb kind of nose in the middle, which leaves a bit of a departure actually, because there's another group of cars, which is the Mercedes and the Toro Rosso, which don't have it. They just have this rather more elegant sort of low swoopy nose, a bit like this. And in fact, if we toggle between the Mercedes and the Toro Rosso from a similar kind of angle, you can see how similar they are, aren't they? So not only is the nose the same, but also take a look at the airbox here and the way it's divided into three sections. There's the Merc and there's the Toro Rosso. So they've taken cues, well, you could say Toro Rosso have taken cues from Mercedes, but vice versa perhaps as well, because Toro Rosso have got lots of good things on their car, and not to mention also the idea on the front suspension. Now, maybe we can have a look at it. You can just about see it on here, but it's actually more noticeable on the Toro Rosso. And this is the area we're looking at, okay, the top wishbone. So what they've both done is raised these wishbones, these front suspension wishbones, as high as they can get them to maximize this area that we've been talking about under the nose, and maximize the airflow area there to be worked by the barge boards, and then under the floor to be worked by the diffuser, so that you bring them up nice and high. Now the only problem is, of course, when you bring your front wishbones up nice and high, you've got to stick them onto the wheel at some point, and you can't get them. To do that, you could put them really closely together and get them onto the wheel hub that way. But that way, if I just illustrate here, they'd be very close together, and you wouldn't have the full range of tyre dynamics effectively, the way that you can actually camber the tyre. So you'd be very restricted if you were having the wishbones closely together and then the tyre like that. You couldn't actually angle the tyre so much the way you wanted to. So what that means is that they need to raise the upper wishbone, and to do that you need to put this arm to come out. So you see the hubs there, top wishbone not even attached to the hub at all, unlike on the McLaren, for example, where it comes straight out, goes into the hub. Nope, don't need to do that on the Mercedes and the Toro Rosso, because you have this arm that comes up. Has to be pretty strong, it's taking quite a lot of loading, and that means that actually it's supporting it above the line of the top of the hub. They already do this, more or less all of the teams, on the rear suspension, to give, well, exactly the same thing, to give more airflow underneath the interruption of the wishbones, and actually to speed out the airflow in that area. So what they've done at the rear, they're now doing at the front like this. So it works very well, and it does mean that push rod needs to be pretty tough, actually, pretty strong, because it's at that much more of a sort of, shallow angle. But it does the job anyway. We've got the brake ducts, which are getting ever more complicated. And just have a look at these little fellas in here. Do you see this? We'll have a look on the rears in a moment. There are little pressure sensors to see that actually enough air is getting into the brake ducts. There is somebody's job who actually reads those sensors and say, yes, we can cross that off our test list. I can confirm that enough air is getting into these brake ducts. Of course, because if it isn't, they need to find out these things in testing, because if it isn't, they'll have brake failure and they'll retire from a race, and they don't want to do that. So there you go. So there's the corresponding one on the McLaren, which goes straight in. The McLaren also using the brake ducts, and there are some blown front wheel nuts as well. That works with these cars because it's just a matter of actually managing the wake off the front wheel. The front wheel wake, if you imagine it, if air comes in over here and then hits this front wheel wake is the aerodynamicists, the bane of their lives. So what they want to do is to use the air that comes into the brake ducts around here through, and to cool the brakes out of the side of the exit of the front wheels, and then help the airflow do its job according to the flow structures down towards the south of the car, the rear of the car. High velocity it comes out of there, so actually you can manage it quite well. That is the central FIA element that I was referring to. You can see this very helpfully marked out in red by Toro Rosso, as if drawing attention to itself. So you can see you're not allowed to develop around there. The moment that ends, bang, out go the wing flaps, out go the cascade wings, etc., etc. So nice positioning of the cameras here, just on a little stalk. Toro Rosso doing that, and the S duct as well, just drawing air from the bottom through those ducts on the Red Bull as well, and exiting it where it's not going to do any harm to any other surface of the car over the top of the chassis. This shot is interesting, a couple of things on the Mercedes. First of all, Valtteri Bottas seems to have gone with the jagged windscreen here that Nico Rosberg favoured, which I thought was interesting. You see on that, Simon? Yeah, that's all right. And also, look at the space in the wing mirror. So Mercedes have added a couple of very interesting, a little guiding vane, turning vane here, just upstream of the wing mirror itself, to help the air as well. So the mirror's only in there. The rest of it is for aerodynamic effect, which I thought was quite clever. Sorry about the Williams pen, by the way. I'm using a Williams pen, which has actually got a dent in it, which is rather like the Williams itself after Lance Stroll this week. Sorry, cheap joke there. Right, let's have a look at the barge boards underneath the nose. And this is an area which has been ripe for development now. Really serious stuff. So this is quite similar to what Mercedes were running last year, but with even more holes and vents, and actually it's grown a winglet as well here. So lots of man hours, a lot of attention gone into this area of the car on all the cars, not just the Mercedes. Actually on this Mercedes you can just see the inlet for the S-duct here, just this bit there. It's pretty similar on some other cars as well. Now the McLaren's barge boards in this area are also pretty complex and a bit like the Renault as well. There is this element, the rules allow much more freedom for the aerodynamicist. You can do all sorts of things here in the barge boards, and the barge boards really, the job that these things are doing here are to create low pressure areas. So to differentiate between high pressure and low pressure, and if they can create a low pressure area underneath the car by channeling, by the air hitting this and moving faster on the outside than it is, or on the inside, than it is on the other side, then you create a low pressure, and that just means pure downforce. So that's really what they're trying to do, as well as guiding the air around the side of the side pods and then hopefully to the top of the diffuser to create a low pressure area under the car to suck the diffuser and the rear wing under, or rather the rear wing helping the diffuser under the car as well. So that's what McLaren's solution is. It's pretty nice actually. There's a lot of things that you'll see on the McLaren once they get their engine together that are very good on the car as well. So similar thing with the Toro Rosso. They've got some fins above the side pods here and a barge board. You can just see what it's asking the air to do around there. Now we're going to get on to Ferrari's solution on that in a minute, which is a little bit different. But Adrian Newey wanting a few sort of simple solutions to keep it clean. He rather sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek said to us on the notebook on day one, I said, why haven't we seen the complexity on your car? He says, well, I'm a simple fellow, I like to keep it simple. Yeah, nice one, Adrian. The truth is, of course, is that Red Bull know that they need to keep their car ultra low drag to compete with the power of the Mercedes. If you thought the emphasis this year was actually on aerodynamics purely rather than on engine power, think nothing of that, because engines are still important. Every percentage point, as Adrian said, you get on the engine, 1 percentage point on the engine, that's 1/10 of a second. Same more or less for the aerodynamics. Every percentage point on the aerodynamics is 1/10 of a second. The thing is, it's much harder to find big percentage points on aerodynamics gains than it is on the engine. So if you've already got a strong engine like Mercedes, you're already so much more, better equipped to go into battle than if you've got a weaker engine. Not saying the Renault is a weaker engine, but historically it has been. So that's why Adrian's keeping it pretty simple, and Dan Fallows and everyone else at Red Bull with what they've got in here. Not too many bits and bobs on the side, just keeping it simple, and look how tight as they've got the packaging on the side pods. Really, Ferrari and Red Bull leading the way in making ultra tight packaging around the side of the side pods, and look how slim that is to the back. Wow, that's incredible. I mean, certainly when you compare it to something with the Williams, which is a bit fatter in that area, that is just incredible. Tight Coke bottle shape, as they call it, to the back. Actually, there's going to be so little of it, it's not going to resemble the back of a Coke bottle at the bottom of a Coke bottle at all soon enough, but that's especially impressive. We'll just do one more before we take a break. Ah yes, now the Ferrari. Right, so I don't know what you think about these sort of barge boards in front of the Ferrari. To me, it kind of looks like the Ferrari's having a bit of a sigh. You see what I mean? It's kind of going, it's kind of on the side, the shoulders dropping a bit. You won't be able to get that out of your head now whenever you see the side of the Ferrari straight on. But again, what they're trying to do is very cleverly using this area of exploitation where they're allowed to put barge boards in as a kind of turning vane, as a preconditioner to getting the air underneath and around. So they realise that they can actually put there, doesn't affect the amount of air that goes into the side pods. They've still got enough air, charge air, to go in and cool the intercooler and everything else, the ERS and the water radiators that need to be into the side pods. But they can do that, and they have a little exit for anything that comes out the top of it without compromising the charge air in that and just helping aerodynamics. So we'll have a little bit more of the Ferrari in this next shot. You can see from the side angle as well, they've gone with the mirrors that Mercedes have. And these look a bit sort of cumbersome, these sort of slightly rectangular barge boards here, but they're working well so far. It's a nice interpretation. You can see the scoop on here if you look down on the side of the barge board there. Is it a game changer for Ferrari? Probably not, but it is doing a job for them. And from this angle as well, you can sort of see it as the air comes around here. The side pod is very nicely shaped upwards, and you've got this big arc for airflow to come in over there. I don't think there was anything else on here apart from Sebastian Vettel's crash helmet. And right, before we get into these coat hangers, we'll take a break, so join us in a sec for more Development Corner. Hello, welcome back to the Notebook for day 4, the final day of the first test in Barcelona, and to Development Corner, where we will continue with the class-leading Mercedes so far. And what the Mercedes is doing particularly well is that with the barge boards and everything here and what they've got in the front wing and the S-duct and all of that, they are creating high pressure areas, low pressure areas, and setting up things, surfaces to catch vortices that come off the front wing, the front part of the car, and guiding them under the floor. And as we get towards the diffuser now, which we're going to sort of move on to, we can see how teams are trying to guide air under the floor at high velocity, at high energy, to be worked by the diffuser. That's because the diffuser this year is much bigger, so it's much more powerful. And the thing about air that goes to the diffuser is that it's relatively low drag as well, so you don't get any drag penalty, or much less drag penalty for air that you can work through the diffuser than you do with barge boards and everything else, which helps. You don't want you want as little as possible drag going down the front. But what you look at here is the fins. Yes, I'm not talking about Kimi and Valtteri. I'm talking about these engine cover fins and these coat hangers. They look like the kind of hangers that you hang ladies' skirts on, or your trousers, don't they? But they're not aesthetically particularly pleasing. There's a high likelihood one of them could fall off because they are just downforce generators and shred tyres or worse. So there is a hope amongst fans of aesthetics everywhere that they will be banned before Melbourne on safety grounds, but I'm not so sure. I haven't heard too much about whether that's actually going to happen, so we'll see. But anyway, so the fin effectively just makes the rear wing work harder. With the lower rear wings this year, there's much more obstruction in terms of the roll hoop to that rear wing, and if you can just clean up air either side of it with a little fin, just makes the rear wing work harder, gives more downforce, and acts, as Adrian Newey was saying on Monday, as a weather vane effectively. If the car is in yaw, just like a weather vane goes with the wind, it actually helps stabilize the rear in windy conditions. Can be affected by side winds, that's possible, but it actually helps, ironically enough, stabilize the rear as it's going round corners, which is what the drivers want. So that explains the fins and the coat hanger wings, if you like. We can see what Mercedes are trying to do. They've got very, very complicated barge boards in this area as well. Again, just guiding these vortices off the front wing, managing them under the floor as well to the diffuser. Red Bull actually have a cut-out section of their floor here, which is particularly interesting. I think you saw it on a shot a bit ago as well. And they're just managing this area. You get a lot of disturbing air, or rather air disturbed by the rear wheel and through the rear suspension, that you want to clean up as much as possible. But if you have a look, Simon, can you just close in on these little sensors in here, again with the air sensors Mercedes in the rear brake ducts, just making sure, I think there's a red, a white and a blue one in there, just making sure that duct is getting the air it needs to cool the rear brakes. And that is that's a little load sensor just on the top of the diffuser here, that everything is all right in that area. The slotted floor I particularly like. We've seen plenty of development around there in previous years, haven't we? Now we move on to rear wings. This is what your rear wing support should look like, and that's one element coming up from the middle, joining the rear wing, and then not being intrinsically part of your DRS, drag reduction system actuator, which is there. and unfortunately Renault got that wrong and have made the whole thing one bit. Just before we leave this picture of the Red Bull copying Mercedes and Toro Rosso with the little louvers just having no edge, no leading edge, just held together with thin bits of metal on there. That was sort of pioneered by Toro Rosso and by Mercedes last year, and Red Bull adopting it for this year as well. So yeah, so if you go on here, we can have a look at the Renault, and lots of other nice bits, but unfortunately they have had this rear support. You can just about see it. It goes straight up and goes straight into the DRS actuation pod there for aerodynamic benefit, but it's not quite right. They need to redesign that. They've been told by the FIA that little arc needs to come out and then hit the rear wing first, rather than just hit that section there. So it's just a small thing, and otherwise won't affect them too badly. But plenty of other nice bits on the Renault. So compliments to everybody at Enstone, because these barge boards, they are absolutely cutting edge, and they have got some edges cut into them as well, and nice solution on the rear wing pillar, on the front wing pillars I should say, as well, and to the rear as well. There's some nice bits, as well as this rather sort of angry looking airbox on the top feeding the Renault engine as well. So there are some nice bits on the Renault, so that's all good stuff to see. On the rear of the Toro Rosso as well, you can just see where they've gone with their rear wing support. Just comes out, isn't part of the DRS there, and they've got the fins that I was talking about, just the way they're only selected, or rather linked by a little piece of metal on here. So as we move to the T-wings, these do just generate downforce. For Williams, they've got 2 of them on here. There was some thought that they're sort of airflow conditioners to the rear wing, but they are just there purely for downforce. They are a little bit yaw sensitive, so they've got to watch out for that, the engineers and the drivers. Mercedes have gone with a double one, so all well done to them. And if you go close up, it is beautifully profiled as well. And that's just 5 centimeters, 50 millimeters chord is all you're allowed on there. Right, as we turn to the rear of the car, we can see what Williams and everybody else are starting to do with their diffuser, and it's much more like the diffusers of kind of 2009, before while the double diffuser came in, and before that. And it's interesting to see the central section, how many little guiding vanes you've got either side. So Williams, I think, have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas plenty of people have gone with much fewer. So Ferrari have only got 1, 2, 3 of these little strakes that come down here. But the thing about the diffuser really is that you're maximizing throughput of air underneath the car to balance out the downforce that you're getting from the rear wing. It really supports the downforce from the rear wing, the diffuser. They have to work together, the diffuser and the rear wing, to give you shed loads of rear downforce. Because they don't work in balance, then you're not really going to get the best of either of them. But if you can feed as much air underneath the car to be worked hard by this diffuser at high velocity as possible, then you'll have a planted rear end, and that will be absolutely brilliant. So we'll just rocket through these because we're a bit short for time. So this is Ferrari's one, pretty nice, not so bad. And another view of it from here. Ferrari were running a monkey seat as well. Bit of a different solution for McLaren as well. Oh dear, they'll hate these pictures. They're nice and close, aren't they? With shorter strakes coming down the side. And Toro Rosso, not too dissimilar to that. They're all sort of, apart from Haas actually, have gone with very, very short little louvers, vertical louvers here, guide vanes, and much easier to manage there. So not such a bad one for the Haas as well. So if you're wondering why the end plates are all slightly bent like this, it is just to manage the turbulent air that comes around the rear suspension, and these part of the cascade wings on the rear wheels just interferes with the diffuser. If you can clean it up with a slot and an end plate, something like that, then it all helps. Like these slots on the end plates of the Mercedes, and they're also such like on the McLaren. They've got lovely rear wing end plates. Complexity of the McLaren rear end plates, something to behold. Absolutely beautiful. Right, we just finish up on Sauber. They've got a innovative monkey seat actually. No monkey seat on this shot of the Mercedes at all, but Sauber's one. I don't know if you can see it a bit close up. There you go, a sort of U-shaped monkey seat. Quite like that. Haven't seen that one before either. And yeah, I think that's more or less about it, apart from some complexity to stuff that the drivers have to deal with. And this was actually a shot of Fernando Alonso's McLaren. First thing to notice is that he's changed his helmet design, his crash helmet design, with this sort of camouflage logo. But Sutton Images got a shot of this. I just thought it was quite interesting. So obviously we've got the oil temperature on the right hand side here, the water temperature, the oil and water pressure. So Fernando can tell if he's lost pressure or not. Engine pneumatic pressure as well, per pneu. And then PERS, there's the ERS coolant pressure as well, the fuel pressure as well in the collector bottle. I believe that's P Colbot. Is the collector bottle on here. Then we've got the gear, of course, in the middle, hydraulic pressure there. We believe that's LPA, which is low pressure. That's part of the hydraulics, I think, so he knows if he's about to lose his hydraulics. The balance and the torque here, there's the brake bias front to rear, 41%, and the balance of the torque, that's ERS front to rear torque. So Fernando Alonso getting plenty of messages from his steering wheel there, plenty of information for him to think about throughout the race that he wants to know. And we're back at the beginning. Excellent. Good. So that's it for Development Corner. Thanks so much for watching. And indeed, thanks for watching throughout this first test. Hope you found it informative. Crofty will be here next week with hashtag AskCrofty. So if you've got any questions about anything at all Formula One wise, then just send any kind of tweet to yourself or to Crofty or to Sky F1 with the hashtag AskCrofty, and he'll pick them up and he'll hopefully answer them for you. But for now, from me, from Simon, our lovely cameraman, and from the whole team here, the Sky F1 team here in the Media Centre bringing you the live blog, thank you very much for your company. Thanks for watching, and I and the Notebook will see you in Melbourne. Bye-bye.